How choosy should you be about your basketball? I'm Tony. Welcome back to Streetball Strategies.
The sound pops like a snare crack. Beginner steps, pick the ball, wearing starter pack. Rubber grips, cheap, got bounce, no finesse. You gotta fill them all first. This ain't no guess.
Today we're talking about how to choose which basketball to use for different levels of basketball experience. Now, disclaimer right up front, if you're looking for specific brands and models of basketballs, like you're looking for me to tell you what specific basketball to get, it's not what I'm doing. This is general advice. I think it genuinely will help you, but I'm not getting specifically into you should get this specific basketball in this video. The way I'm going to break this down is by going into beginner, intermediate, and advanced basketball experience. Which kinds of basketballs should you get for each level? So let's talk about how choosy you should be when it comes to whatever experience you have as a basketball player. Let's start with being a beginner. Now, the great thing about being a beginner is that you're a blank slate, right? Since you don't have any experience, you don't know what you like and what you don't like and what you prefer and don't prefer and what does or does not work for you. The reason that's great is because now you get to experiment, and for the first time ever, you get to experience what it's like to have a basketball that you don't like and that you do like, and like what works for you and what doesn't. Now, that may not sound like much to you as a beginner, but the reality is, like, once you get years into this game, you'll think back on this time and be like, man, that was kind of like a magical time, because I was very first discovering like the kind of root kind of player I was going to be by discovering like, okay, what kind of basketball is it that works best for me? So when it comes to choosing a basketball as a beginner, the key is to experiment. My advice is, when you buy a basketball, the basketball should be as basic and bare bones as possible, which also means it's probably going to be fairly inexpensive, which is a good thing because that basketball is going to break down and wear out relatively quickly, and that's fine. And that's a good thing, because that means once you take that ball through its entire life cycle, when you go to replace it, you can then replace it with a ball that's slightly different from the last ball. And what I advise is, nowadays, you guys have so many options when it comes to basketball, even the very basic sort of bare bones kind of basketballs. When I was coming up in the 90s, you either had expensive leather basketballs that were meant for indoor play, and this is an outdoor channel, or you had super basic rubber basketballs that didn't really have any good use or utility to them. But now you have a long spectrum of basketballs that go from super rubbery basketballs to super like composite leather basketballs that feel very leathery. You have that whole entire spectrum. And within that spectrum are the very basic basketballs that travel up and down that spectrum. And you have the ability to experience all of those basic basketballs. And you should. The reason I say that is because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you come out to the park, you're about to compete, and now you have to use a basketball that's a different kind, style, feel, make, kind of, maybe a fabric or, whatever, a construction that you're not used to. And, when you're a few years in, that doesn't really make that much of a difference. But when you're a beginner and you're playing with a basketball type that you're not used to, that can make a big difference. So the more you experiment with basketballs and see what it's like to take a brand new basketball of a certain type all the way through its life cycle, from brand new to completely worn out, and then replace it with a basketball that's slightly different and work your way up and down that spectrum, then now you have the experience of like, okay, there's no kind of basketball that I could ever play with, that I could ever be presented with, that is going to be uncomfortable to me. Because as I'm rapidly replacing basketballs, I'm changing slightly the kind of basketball that I used last time. And you work your way through that spectrum so that by the end of it, there's no kind of basketball that you could ever encounter that is going to make you feel uncomfortable. That's the best kind of advice I could give you as a beginner, as what kind of basketball should you have. As for choosing a basketball as an intermediate player, by the time you get to intermediate, you'll have so much experience with all those other basketballs. You'll have a really good idea now what you like, what fits you, what works best for you, what you prefer. It's at that point that I recommend when you know that you're an intermediate player, and you'll know, you can watch a video about how you'll know right here. But once you're intermediate, my advice is to find that basketball that fits you best, right? And it doesn't have to be anything fancy or expensive, just the basketball that fits best with your game at that current level. Find the best basketball that works best for you and use that basketball, have it be your workhorse. Now you're in the workhorse aspect of what kind of basketball you should use. Find that best basketball and keep replacing it over and over again, either with the same basketball or a basketball that's very similar to it. Now that you're intermediate, this basketball, your workhorse, is now going to be responsible for your grind as a intermediate player. The whole point of this part of your basketball career with this basketball, your workhorse, is you want it to become synonymous with you. When people see you as you're now building your reputation around the court, around towns, when people see you, they see you with a certain kind of basketball. They identify that basketball with you and you that basketball. And one of the best advantages of that is because when you finally decide, okay, there's this one kind of basketball that I'm going to use as my workhorse, now you become so familiar with that basketball, it becomes like another limb. You want your familiarity with this basketball to be that where it gives you an advantage against other players that are not familiar with your basketball. So when you show up to the court and people choose to use your basketball to play and use in competition, since you're the player that's most familiar with that basketball, you're the person that's going to be able to handle that basketball the best. Now, that's not some kind of huge advantage or anything like that, but it can have its small advantages here and there. For example, end of game, loose ball kinds of play. If the ball is loose and you and your opponent are running and chasing it down, the more familiar you are with this ball and what it takes to get a good firm purchase and grip on the basketball, and they've never used this basketball before, that's going to give you an advantage over them because you know how and when and what kind of purchase it's going to take to recover that loose ball. Now, that's not a situation that's going to happen all the time, but when it does happen, having that small advantage can come in very handy. And plus, it's just sort of nice. It's kind of a safety, blanket to feel like I have this one basketball that I'm so familiar with that it feels like an extra limb, like nobody else knows in this basketball the way I do. Nobody's as familiar with it. And because I have such a good kinship with this basketball, it feels like it's part of me. That's just a nice kind of confidence boosting part to have in your basketball bag. Lastly, when we talk about being an advanced basketball player and the kind of basketball you'd have at that time of your career, that's when I advise, well, now that you're an advanced player and your peak, your prime is going to be fairly short probably, right? And you work so hard to get there, I say, well, now it's time to have your luxury basketball, your perfect basketball, the basketball that's like, this is my ideal basketball. It has all the bells and whistles. It's expensive. It has all the features, all the stuff that you either didn't need or didn't know how to use prior to being deep into, an intermediate player. Now that you're an advanced player, now you can have whatever basketball you want as long as it works best for you. Now you kind of you've earned that super fancy, expensive basketball. It's like, working really hard for a long time and saving up your money so you can buy like the sports car that you want. Do you need the sports car? No, but as long as you know how to drive it and you can actually make use of the features that it allows you to have and you can take advantage of them and use them to your favor, then why not use that sports car and have that high luxury basketball as long as you can use it to the best of its abilities? You've worked really hard to become an advanced basketball player when most players don't. So once you get there, then kind of treat yourself and get the kind of perfect basketball that you've always wanted. You now deserve it. Being that advanced peak prime kind of player, that's only going to last for a small window of time. So while you're there, you might as well have the best basketball that fits your game and, that you feel like, okay, this is the epitome of the basketball I could ever use. It doesn't have to be super fancy or super expensive, but if you want it to be, now I feel like you're in a position where if that's what you want, you finally earned it, so go ahead and treat yourself. That's how to choose the right basketball for each level of basketball experience. Again, no brands or models. I have plenty of basketball reviews on this channel. I'm not trying to get into that in this video, but I do think this advice is going to be useful nonetheless. One of the major reasons is because it kind of takes you on a sensible journey where you start experimenting, finding the kind of basketball you like so you can actually choose the right basketball for yourself. And then when you do find the basketball that you do like and fits you best, then that becomes your workhorse for the majority of your career, where it becomes part of you. And then when you get to the last part, the most advanced peak of your career, now you get to have the basketball that, is luxurious, the best ideal, perfect basketball for you once you've kind of earned that luxury. To me, that makes sense, and I think it's really good advice. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, if you think it's going to help you choose the right basketball to use at the right stage in your basketball career, then please subscribe to the channel. And let us know down in the comments any tips you may have for choosing the right basketball at the different stages of your basketball career. But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below, because not only does hitting that thanks button highlight all of your comments, making them stand out, but hitting that thanks button also directly supports the channel. So for anyone that does hit that thanks button, know I genuinely appreciate it. As always, like, share, comment, like I said, make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, see you guys next week.
Grinding, yo, y'all need a workhorse, bouncing through the leagues, full court discourse, synthetic to leather, the grip feels strong. This ball's doing hours singing stamina songs. Crossovers crisp with that trial in the park. Rubber smashes, composite sparks after dark. Levels advanced, find a ball matching your heart. Out here, no rebounds wasted on start. Advanced hands now, you earn that flex. Luxury leather, soft touch, no regrets. Got that premium spin, gripping like lotto cash. Pro level feel, every shot a highlight splash.